Good afternoon and welcome to the August 11th, 2015 meeting of the Glendale Housing Authority. May we have the roll call, please?
Here. Kelly.
Here.
Karazian. Sinanian.
Here.
Chair Najarian.
Here. May we have your report?
The agenda for the August 11th, 2015 regular meeting of the Glendale Housing Authority was posted on Friday, August 7th, 2015 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. And what's the next item?
Item 4, approval of minutes. Item 4A, minutes of the regular Housing Authority meeting of Tuesday, August 4th, 2015.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly, do you have a motion for 4A to approve the minutes? Yes, you do.
Yes, I do.
I'll take that motion from Mr. Kelly. Is there a second?
Second.
And with no objections or corrections, the minutes will be approved as submitted by unanimous vote of all those present. Next item, please.
Item 5, oral communications. No cards were submitted.
Okay, we'll close oral communications and move to the next item.
Item 6, business. Item 6A, Director of Community Development regarding annual submission of the Section 8 Management Assessment Program, SEMAP, self-certification for fiscal year 2014-15. Item 6A1, motion approving annual submission of the Section 8 Management Assessment Program, self-certification for fiscal year 2014-15 to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Thank you. Mr. Ochoa?
Yes, sir. We have for you the annual certification regarding our Section 8 Management Assessment Program. This has been done for, I believe, the last 17 years, and over the last 15, the Glendale Housing Authority has been designated as a high performer. What that means is, as you see in your staff report, the CMAP indicators, as they're referred to by the assessment, list all of the component pieces that go into a Section 8 program, from the designation and selection of families to the monitoring of the paperwork and the income verifications. All that has to be assembled. All of that has to be reviewed and certified by an outside auditor. And each year there is a maximum of 145 points. Once again, we are achieving 135 points, which, although 10 points off the maximum, is a reflection of the fact that there is a program component regarding casework that we no longer do. There's no funding for it, and thus we are achieving a full 135 out of 135. That's what we possibly could achieve. That's what we are achieving. And so once again, we are being designated, or would be designated, as a higher performer. If you have specific questions about the different pieces of the audit or the report, the assessment itself, I would have Joseph Rodarte come up and answer those questions for you. This is an annual certification, but it is somewhat familiar because we do it each year, but certainly it is something that the council should take a great deal of pride in. With that, Joseph would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mr. Ochoa. And Joe, let me just say that it's very frustrating for certain members of the community who are on the Section 8 waiting lists as they wait year after year to obtain their vouchers. Oftentimes they turn their frustration into accusations against the authority and the city council and the individuals working, that the fix must be in. My neighbor just moved in from Oklahoma and immediately got a Section 8 housing voucher. And could you just, I guess, there's a lot in the report, but just touch on the integrity of the system and how we make sure that there are no improprieties being.
Absolutely. And good afternoon, everyone. Mayor Najarian, Housing Authority members, and city staff. Just to touch on it, this is actually one of the cornerstones of the integrity and performance of our agency. One of the indicators here is the management of the waiting list and how it's measured. And anyone that's pulled off of that waiting list is audited, not just by city staff. It may be self-certified, but by independent auditors hired by the city, and also by HUD themselves upon submission of the report. So this is just one of the foundation of that integrity. We also have individuals and checks and balances within the system that we established in the housing division. And that goes starting with employees. There's only one individual that's able to to go ahead and make changes to waiting list positions and/or upon receiving information. There's another individual that checks every single action that's done in that particular system. And that's developed by the IT reports. The IT reports are then submitted to the supervisors of those individuals so that they can monitor and track the actions. Because of the level of importance that is placed on this program, those accusations can cause severe damage to the program, and we take it very, very, very serious.
Okay. Thank you. We know you're doing a good job. And there are emotions do run high and frustrations run high.
Absolutely.
Also, you feel it. Believe me, we feel it also. And I know, I think we all wish that there was something more we could do to extend greater housing benefits, but that's what we have. Other comments or questions?
I have comments, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Last year we had some significant movement on the Section 8 list as a result of these 165, if I'm not mistaken.
Approximately 145 people were pulled.
145 people were eventually pulled, meaning new recipients of Section 8 housing. And on top of that, we incorporated some of the portables and turned those into local Section 8
Correct.
recipients. Okay, so that was great, obviously, and I'm sure, despite what those that weren't fortunate to be one of those 145 people and potentially families, couples received Section 8 housing. A huge difference in their life, I'm sure, and something we can be happy and proud of. What's happening this year? Are we at all looking at some more funding?
Just to give you an idea, as far as Congress, the House and the Senate, right now we're looking at probably a continuing resolution looking into the next year. For the remainder of this year, we have approximately 5 months left. I can tell you, though, the way that we're trending, we may have a small reserve, but we have to be very careful as far as what we're looking at right now. We have to measure staff's ability to go ahead and handle new individuals being pulled from the waiting list, but there may be an opportunity to pull a small number. It's not going to be anywhere near last year's, but we do try to pull as many people as we can, and the funding will sustain.
In our decision last year to use a smaller portion of the funding to turn the portables into local Section 8 vouchers, did that work? Did that serve the purpose that we wanted to serve, which was to provide more funding for our own staff to be
Very
able to
good
process
question,
these, right?
and it did. It did. Initially, what ends up happening is we have to get our lease up as soon as possible to incur and raise that funding level if we see that additional need for that. We haven't had to do that this year, which is because early on, because of what we had done last year, HUD kind of spoke to us and said, hey, you know what, you may be on that borderline of a shortfall prevention. So you may want to watch your leasing activities, at which point that is when we froze any of our leasing activities and said, okay, well, let's see what the picture is going to present. And right now, as I had mentioned, the picture is starting to look pretty good, that there's going to be some individuals that are going to be able to be pulled from the waiting list.
And when will we know? I know this is all very approximate. So
preliminarily, we'll probably know in the next couple of months, and we'll try to get up as far as staff. And you kind of have to establish exactly when you're going to do it, set a point, and then get staff prepared to be able to prepare the files and move it in that direction. So if it's only going to be 10 or 15, not too much of a difficult task, but if we're looking at 50, we're going to have to ramp up for those activities. So we'll know a better idea in the next possible 2 months.
is 50 a possibility?
I'm just throwing out a number. This is all
Very preliminary. Very speculative.
Yeah, I would really like to be conservative. We've always been conservative in our estimates, and it's served us well. So I would say 10 to 15 is more in the realm.
Okay. And these are all, we're talking about new vouchers. How about those individuals that either pass on or they leave the program for one reason or another? Do their vouchers revert back to the federal government, or are we able to take those and give them to someone else?
Those are what we deem called attrition, and those are regular vouchers that are Glendale vouchers that, let's say, for instance, a person passes away. That voucher goes back into our stock. And then we make the decision whether we are going to utilize that voucher, and that depends a lot on the funding, the picture that we're presenting. So at this point, we're still averaging anywhere from 4 to 5 individuals coming off that program.
Every year?
And we went as high, if I'm not mistaken, 1,500, and at our highest point, 1,500, and I want to say 78 last year, or 1,575 vouchers of our maximum voucher allotment, which was 1,592. Right now, we're probably at a good idea at 1,554, so we need to kind of watch that. We have about 40 vouchers to play with, or 38 vouchers to play with right now, and we're trying to see if we can increase that number. So the maximum, realistically, that we could lease up is 1,592. So 38 vouchers would be the maximum that we'd be able to do.
Got it. And the funding it's a common pool, whether it's to the vouchers that we got as a result of attrition, or the spaces that emptied out, I guess, or whether it's new vouchers.
Any new vouchers are going to be released in what's called a NOFA, Notice of Funding Availability. So we will not be granted any new vouchers unless we're applying for them. So for instance, there's a grant that recently came out, and they're called non-elderly disabled vouchers. That particular grant was to serve a specific population. So many individuals or so many housing authorities applied that it was done at random lottery. Glendale wasn't awarded. I think that was about a year and a half ago, if I'm not mistaken. So that's how typically new vouchers come under the control of the housing authority. The regular vouchers, 1592, those are always going to be in our stable. So whether we lease up to 1592 and then we have attrition rates down to 1550, those 40 vouchers are back to us.
Okay. And not that this is going to stem the tide of questions about this, but we have a 5-point system, still servicing those that have 5 points, right? We haven't.
We actually have 9 preference points. It's just that we've served the homeless, we've served the U.S. veterans, we've served displaced by government action, any of those higher preference point totals. What's remaining right now that you're referring to is the 5 preference points are the single preference points, single and disabled, over the age of 62, working families, those types. And we are still serving 5 preference points.
Okay. And last question,
sure.
I promise. The federal government, the HUD, is keenly aware about our needs.
Absolutely.
City of Glendale, as far as
every opportunity, and the Housing Authority has made it known to staff and others that at any opportunity that we have, we will be able to and we will display our need, and whoever is going to listen.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Before I double dip, I will see if Ms. Friedman has a question. Mr. Kelly, any questions? And let me ask a question. What help could the county government offer for us in these efforts to increase the number of vouchers or the situation in general of our residents looking for housing? Is there anything that they can do?
I would probably have to turn maybe this question over to Peter as far as that, but
Mayor Najarian, members of the Housing Authority, the county operates their own Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program, so the ability for them to assist us in any way is very limited. They are in the same position that we are in that they are fighting continued budget cuts, budget constraints on the admin fee that we earn as well to operate the program. And so there's not any additional funding that they'd be able to provide us in any way to assist us with our program.
Aside from Section 8, is there any other way that they can help us in terms of funding?
To my knowledge, not on a program level. There are certain development projects that we can apply for funding for that they have if it meets their criteria. For instance, there is the City of Industry funding that for the longest time was available. It's been reduced and renamed over the years. But it's still a funding source that if you have the right project that meets the criteria, you could apply for and compete to try and win some funding to assist in that manner, but not necessarily for a program like a Section 8 operation.
We've done that before. We've gone after.
We have a number of projects that have
City
taken
of Industry
advantage
money
of,
before.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Are there any other comments regarding this item? Let's see what it calls for. This is a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Friedman,
Yes.
Garpetian, Kelly,
Yes.
Brazian, Sinanian,
Yes.
Chair Najarian.
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 7, authority member staff comments.
Comments from the authority members or from staff? Someone like to move to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Housing Authority is adjourned.